Good day, or good evening. This is Dr. Deena Padyachee in South Africa, in Durban. I want to thank Mr. K.K. Kumar and the Fertile Brains for this invitation to give a solo performance on the work that I do and poetry and that sort of thing. I'm also a short story writer. I want to first of all answer the questions that are being put to all the poets. Why do I write? Um, I actually have very little choice about that because from my teenage years, I would spontaneously have certain thoughts and then I would put it down. I didn't think too much of what I was doing. I would scribble all over the place, usually on scraps of paper, just like most people do, and then it would get lost. And then gradually over the years, I started accumulating the work, and then it finally turned into a book of poetry called A Voice from the Cauldron in 1986. And then short stories were something I indulged in, and most of them were against racism and injustice and apartheid. So they couldn't be published in South Africa. The censorship was very bad, and the editors were under a lot of pressure not to publish anti-apartheid literature. So most of my writing had to be published in America by Short Story International, and poetry was published in England and Australia and in India. So to get on to excuse me, what do I write about? I think I've said that already. My focus is on injustice, apartheid, racism, xenophobia, all the irrational things with which I grew up. And, uh, if you were growing up in South Africa, it was a time of absolute insanity where people were judged according to their phenotype, in other words, by their appearance, and not on the content of their character and personality and attributes, as Martin Luther King would say. And so, and this was obviously happening not just in South Africa, but had been happening over most of the world for over 500 years. So naturally, when you're blessed with the kind of carapace that I'm blessed with, and the amount of melanin that I've got in my skin, protecting me against skin cancer and blemishes and wrinkles, I then began writing about how I felt about all these things. And fortunately, now apartheid is gone, but we still have a lot of oppression, a lot of censorship, and it's very difficult for me to get published even now. But anyway, I'm going to begin my oath by reading from a poem called A Prayer for Civilization. And this was published in this book called New Coin Poetry, which is published by the University of Rhodes. The editor is Crystal Warren. And so I'll read this poem. Now, this poem grew out of my experiences from childhood. I was admitted as a patient when I was 7 years old at King Edward Hospital, and suffered a great deal from the kind of treatment I got, but my life was saved. And then from the kind of treatment I see even now happening to hapless patients, innocent patients who are treated very badly, and it's such a cruel environment for the ill and the ailing that I was moved to write the following poem. Now, at that time, I was doing sessions, 2-hour sessions at a government clinic called the Phoenix Community Health Center in Unit 10 in Phoenix. And because of what I observed and what I saw and what I experienced, I wrote the following poem, A Prayer for Civilization. When we observe our fellow citizens and their daily travail, one can't help asking, how can it make you happy if you are rude or rough with people? How can it make you joyful if you make people's lives difficult? Would it help your digestion or your self-image if you shout at others? If you are curt, would it make you feel superior to others or make you feel better than us? Would it make your daughter smile or make your son proud? If you are arrogant and horrible, cold and unfeeling, if you bully and humiliate people, if you destroy careers and incinerate living people, if you are racist, what does that say about your soul? What does it matter if you have a string of educational accomplishments, if you've read Gandhi, Einstein, Mandela, Alan Paton, Gibran, and Tutu, if you still make children cry and women weep and men shake their heads in sadness? When you, my fellow human beings, are in pain and tears trickle from your eyes like blood from your soul, what kind of person would be simple-mindedly obsessed with himself? I see people who care for people, people who enjoy bathing babies and who teach people manners, people who sew and clean and teach children to read, people who mix cement, lay bricks, repair vehicles and remove the litter, people who protect and employ the people, people who have endured racism, humiliation, and innovating stress. I see people who have kissed and sung, danced and loved. I see people who love and who need love. So I ask again, why must you upset yourself by being awful to others? It is so much easier to smile, to be polite, to be kind, to care. For from the people comes courtesy, humanity, appreciation, love, and respect. The people illuminate the only lives that we all have. When you look at us, you see South Africa, our beloved country. When you care for us, you care for our country and you honor God. So that poem was inspired by the behavior of some health care people who, in my opinion, behaved very badly. So my next poem is from this book. It's called The Ground's Year, and it is a collection of contemporary verse from Southern Africa. And I'm going to read a poem which was published for the first time in this book called The Evil in the Eyes. You color your eyes so when you gaze at the people, you see something less than human. But the only evil in their skins, dear Violet, is the evil in your eyes. So this poem is about how when people look at other people, they judge them, evaluate them, make decisions about their personality and character simply by how they look. And I realized that the actual problem was inside the eyes, inside the brains, inside the hearts and souls of these people who were looking at people like me. And they had the evil in their eyes. The evil was not in my skin. The next poem is called If I Hated, which is in the same book. And the poem, I think, has relevance because of the invasion of the Ukraine by, sorry, I'm just trying to get something right here, by the Russian army earlier this year, February of this year. If I hated the Germans, I wrote this some time ago, maybe about 20 years ago. And it goes like this: if I hated the Germans, I would make the invasion and devastation of Russia seem like a crusade for them. Make them desire their own deaths. Make them want to separate their people from their families. Make them court Russians' shells. Get them to freeze and perish in the snows of Moscow and Stalingrad. If I hated the Russians, I would entice their soldiery into the desolate mountains of Afghanistan, to be ambushed and slaughtered for no rational reason. If I hated the Italians, I would get them to send their army to steal from poor people, to suffer and die in the hills of Ethiopia. If I hated the Japanese, I would get them to invade multitudinous China. I would provoke them into bombing Pearl Harbor. If I hated the Americans, I would trick them into thinking that the jungles of Vietnam needed their warriors' blood. If I hated the Anglo-Americans, I would get them to ape their antecedents. I would lure their young into becoming targets in Iraq, Libya, and Afghanistan. If I hated the zealots, I would get them to fight all those who are not like them, get them to be in a permanent state of war, a permanent state of unhappiness, and make them think that that is paradise. But if I loved them, I would help them to try to find better leaders. My other great focus is poetry, and at least the poetry of romance. So I'm going to read a poem, a romantic poem, which is about a very special lady called Nita Gathiram, who I loved very much. And it goes like this: I love you. I love you till the stars shatter in the heavens. I love you till my essence is melded in the dust. And still my dust will love you and become a mist in your eyes. I love you till your eyes lose their luster and my heart stops singing. And still I love you. I love you forever. I cannot live without you. My life is without its life. I breathe, but my life is like a bird with feathers, but without flight, like a prancing stallion without its mare, like a candle without its wick. I am like a zombie. I breathe, but my heartbeat is between your beautiful fingers. How do I stop loving you? Thank you for listening to me. The next poem is called Ideals. Now, I wrote this. This is from my book of poems, Voice from the Cauldron, published in 1986. If I could turn the Sahara to sugarcane and give some of it to the Jews and some to the Palestinians, so they will not kill. If I can take the ice of Siberia and make it hum with life and give it to every landless person in this sad world, so that no absent owner can steal a roof. If I could make a little of the Atlantic land and give some of it to Irish Catholics and to Irish Protestants, to Germans and to Dutch and to English, so that bomb will not macerate child and no vital, vigorous person will be paralyzed. If I could give a little bit of the Pacific to the Americans to fight in among themselves, so they might stay away from Vietnam and Grenada and Cuba. If I could teach the Russians that they have enough land and do not need to invade Hungary or Czechoslovakia or Afghanistan. If I could teach man that there is no happiness in another person's unhappiness or life in another person's death. If I could teach man not to strangle this earth with his progeny and annihilate other species. If I could teach man to be satisfied with God's bounty and not to steal. If I could teach man that religion cannot mean hate and that arrogance is merely a symptom of decay and doom. If only, oh Lord, if only. Right, so that was published or written on the 5th of November, 1983. What I interspersed the book with is little thoughts, aphorisms. And the one that I see here goes like this. Sometimes it's an accolade to be condemned by certain societies. All such societies do is spotlight their own unethical values. They presage their own downfall. Right. So, there's another saying which might have resonance with some of the people who are listening and watching. When a human being is humiliated because of what God bestowed on him, in the final analysis, it is God who is humiliated. Well, we all know that God can't be humiliated because God is above that kind of thing. Then there's a poem in this book which might have some interest to fellow poets and other people. It's about why we write. And I call this one Little Needles. Must I be thankful to little needles, which provoke a stream of tumbling, sad words that somehow induce a subterranean feeling of something exquisite, something beautiful. Right. Now, if you can bear with me, I'm going to look for a poem. I had everything open and somehow it disappeared. I'm going to search for the poem. It's called Imagine a World. It's a tribute for the people of the Ukraine and Russia, and it was published in Glow Mag in May 2022. By the way, most of my poems have been published from Glow Mag, which is by Glow Mag, which is a literary journal magazine, which is usually published online twice every month, and then twice a year there are hard copies that are published by Glory Sasikala, who has been very kind to me and has accepted all my work and has been publishing me regularly for many years now. So this poem is called Imagine a World. And as I said, it's a tribute to the people of Russia and the Ukraine. Imagine a world. Imagine a world where the warriors are infused with wisdom. Imagine a world where sagacious soldiers in their hundreds of thousands refuse to be invaders, ravagers, and murderers. A world where the patriots refuse to put their precious life on the line for psychopaths. Imagine such a world. Imagine a world where the children are cherished, where the ladies are celebrated, where the men are worthy of love, where the elderly are revered, adored, and respected. Imagine a world. Imagine a world where greed is seen to be as disgusting as war. Imagine a world where racism is seen as the purgatory of the retarded. Imagine a world. Imagine a world where the ashamed bigots realize that they reek with the stench of the irrational. Imagine a world where arrogance is the arena of the absurd. Imagine such a world. Imagine a world where all may see the divine in diverse cultures and eclectic music plays a symphony of love in our spirits. Imagine a world where the fiends are subjected to justice. Imagine a world where the traitors are ashamed and the sweetness of the soul is saved. Imagine a world where the dreams of Gandhi, King, and Mandela are not dreams. Imagine a world. Thank you. I don't know if I've got time for another poem. I'm going to look for a poem about doctors. It's called A Doctor's Prayer, and it goes like this: to be ethical in a sometimes unethical world, to be honest in a world which is often dishonest, to be humane and civil in a world which is too often inhuman and uncivilized, to be non-racist in a world that sometimes prides itself on being legally racist, to adhere to the highest moral standards in a world which sometimes condones immorality, to always behave with humility and kindness in a world full of arrogance and deceit, to always act in the best interests of our patients and not in the best interests of our bank overdraft, to never dishonor our colleagues and our noble profession, to try to live in a way that focuses on leaving behind happy memories. That is the daily challenge faced by every medical practitioner and every human being. May we always behave in a manner that does not bring opprobrium upon ourselves, our families, our colleagues, our fellow human beings, and our country. May we never dishonor those who suffered so much to garner for us and our descendants our hard-won and blood-soaked freedom from legally imposed racism, unethical laws, and tyranny. So, I'm going to conclude with I see I've still got a few minutes, so I'm going to conclude with well, this and another poem. This one is called Whores, W-H-O-R-E-S. I remember so many resistance heroes from the era of the apartheid terror. I look at them now. There is an aura of smugness about many of them, a feudal haughtiness. They are part of an inner circle, an exclusive club, a new caste of collaborators. They were different back then. Excuse me. They were full of fire and fury, full of admirable altruism. They risked their skins, their careers, their peace of mind, even their families for their country, for their people. They were respected. Many were poor, but they were patriots. Now they solemnly genuflect before the new gods. Their backs are broken. The socialism of the resistance years is not even a memory. They rationalize what the bosses do. They make excuses, they lie, especially to themselves. They know the rules. They do not see. They do not hear. Their tones around the new Heron folk are reverential. What passes for their voices low. The former zealots trample each other in their haste to be better helots. Smirks and contempt smother them. The new Heron folk gloat. They're terrified of being cast out, of losing their plum positions. They revel in the influence that they have, their connections, the power, the money. They flaunt their new wealth. They party unashamedly and publicly at their many garish banquets, like pigs at a poker. Clowns are embarrassed by them. Their patriotism no longer exists. It has been bought. They have become whores. The poverty-stricken, the destitute, and the shack-tellers cry out, but their voices are unheard. Many liberators are stricken sycophants, even as they savor their obscene wealth, their bejeweled, pleading spouses, their spoiled, coiffured, condescending, addicted offspring, their power and their positions in a tormented country which remains, in many ways, still painfully colonized and conquered. I'll share with you one of my aphorisms. I hope to be publishing a book of aphorisms, and this one goes like this. Colonial curricula helps to create caricatures of the conquistadors. Right. Now I'm going to make a little departure from reading poetry. I'm going to read from how we built our own school. A short story called A Different Kind of Standard 4. The school was created by my community, and the land for the school was donated by the local people so that we could get an education. My father only had a Standard 4, which is grade 6 these days, but he helped to build the school. And so I'm going to read a few lines about how my father got involved in building a school. This is my father speaking. We bought a generator to produce electricity for our factory. It used to break down so often that we all learned something about machinery. because we had to try and fix it ourselves most of the time. And if we had not been able to work with the African people, there would have been little that we could have done. But there was no school. A child unable to read is at a terrible disadvantage. In 1950, some of us got together and tried to build a school. We made that decision. We all knew what it was like trying to do something without the book knowledge for it. It's like trying to make a chair when you don't have hands, or trying to speak when there's a stone in your voice box. We didn't want our children to start where we had started. People will like you more if you can help them. So thanks for allowing me to read that prose in a poetry session. And I think I'm going to share some writing I wrote about the Gandhi Ashram, which was very close to my surgery in Phoenix, in Durban, and which was destroyed on the 9th of August, 1985. I witnessed the destruction. This happened during apartheid. And I wrote a short story about how an old man met one of the people destroying the ashram, the Gandhi ashram. That was an ashram built by Mahatma Gandhi himself with his friends and associates. And he lived in South Africa for 21 years, as I think most of you would know. And so the story is told from the point of view of the person destroying the Gandhi ashram. And it goes like this. I'm leaving, he said, and I turned quickly to look at him. It was not as if the police and army had suddenly decided to earn their pay or something, and I hadn't noticed him take anything yet. There was that weird look in his eyes. Now, these lines are set among the turmoil of the destruction of the Gandhi ashram. There was that weird look in his eyes again. Was it just his strange spectacles? The kind of look that speaks of too much wisdom, too much understanding, too much love. He didn't have a shirt on, and the white cloth wrapped crazily around his thin body was ragged. I'm going to cut now to the end. There had always been a kind of unearthly peace in the old ashram, a kind of freshness, a crispness of the air that left you exhilarated. The peace seemed to suffuse you, calm you, no matter what the turmoil you saw, till that day when we looted the place. Somehow, when that old man turned on his heel and strode off from the ashram, all the peace in the place seemed to leave with him. And I didn't feel like stealing after that. In fact, I felt quite miserable. I felt, God help me, like a horse in a fox hunt, like a bullet from a robber's gun. But I kept the old desk, and at times when I look long and hard at it, I think I can see the old man's face looking up at me, and his eyes seem bright with life. Thank you so much, Mr. K.K. Kumar. I really appreciate this opportunity, and my gratitude to you and Fertile Brains is boundless. Thank you.